Low. Written by Lale. Read by Kim McNeil. It had been almost 72 hours now. Dean and Cass had left Camp Chautauqua early in the morning. It was dark and rainy, the first real gust of autumn in early October. Usually Dean made Cass drive one of the Jeeps while he took the pickup, but that day Cass was even more sleepy than usual. So Dean just let him climb in the passenger seat with him and huddle up. Let the poor guy have some rest. He was barely starting to come to terms with the loss of his angelic essence. Another couple of dudes followed them in their own truck. Dean couldn't remember their names. They had arrived at camp a few days back, while he was busy figuring out how long it would take before the whiskey they'd stocked ran out. And welcome barbecues were out of the cards nowadays. So Dean hadn't really had a chance to familiarize properly. He had settled on Dude 1 and Dude 2. The harvesting was fast and smooth. Dean was stocking the last of the stuff in the back seat while Cass was on the truck's bed tying the tarpaulin. The rain hadn't stopped completely, but it had turned into a cold, fine mist, the kind that penetrates through the bone and chills the bone marrow. That's when they heard the rumble of the other truck's engine. Dean lifted his head just in time to see the vehicle sprint away, leaving them behind. "The fuck?" he barely managed to say. "Dean, drive, now," Castiel cried from the pickup's bed. Dean climbed into the driver's seat without questioning, the urgency in Cass's voice being enough of an incentive. As soon as the pickup hit the road, a horde of Croats came into view in the rearview mirror. They were close, damn it. They'd been lucky not to be attacked while they were gathering the supplies. Dean drove heedless of the direction for a while, his only goal putting a safe distance between them and the Croats. Unfortunately, the camp was in the opposite direction, Dean realized after a while. It was right after noon, and the rain had fallen back consistently. Dean pulled out and killed the engine. "Cass," he called, rounding the back of the car. The former angel looked miserable, drenched in rain and trembling like a leaf. He had never paid attention to clothing as an angel, and now that he was human, he seemed to not have quite grasped the gist of it. "Damn dork, it would have hurt you to put a jacket over that threadbare shirt, huh?" Cass just stared at him, offering the tiniest of head tilts ever offered. "Yeah, never mind, come here." Dean reached out with his hand, and Cass, after a bit, took the hint and reached back with his own. Dean helped the former angel off of the pickup's bed and immediately encircled his shoulder with one arm protectively. The gesture made Cass flinch in surprise, but Dean only tightened his grip. "You need to warm up. Your body temperature must be pretty low," he offered as an explanation. "As is our luck, apparently," Cass muttered. "Why would you say that?" "We were low on gas when we left this morning, and now the other truck has left with the spare canisters of gasoline before we could replenish our tank. Moreover, the Croats pushed us further away from the camp. You see my point now?" Dean wasn't an optimist, far from that, but today he felt lucky. For once they were alive, despite an almost close encounter with those frickin' zombies. Second, their truck was full of food and other supplies, Jack Daniel included. And third, he got to spend some alone time with Cass in a tiny cabin he knew was out there in walking distance into the woods. "Come on, I'll show you," Dean said before starting to make his way through the trees. The cabin was just as he had left it last time he had been there, alone, almost 1 year prior. It was dusty and cold, no fireplace, but it was dry, and there was a decent amount of blankets and a makeshift mat. As soon as they stepped in, Cass became heavy against Dean's side, so much so that he almost slipped out of Dean's arms. The hunter resettled his grip on the former now passed out angel and carried him to the mat, lowering him with unusual kindness. Soon enough, Cass blinked his eyes open and looked up at Dean in confusion. "I'm sorry," he said. Dean huffed a laugh, a sad one. "What's so amusing?" asking Cass, squinting at him. "You were half frozen, drenched in rain, and passed out, and the first thing you say when you came back around is, 'I'm sorry.' You're really something else." Cass stopped mid-sentence, a loud rumble rising from his stomach. Dean frowned. When was the last time you ate? I forgot, Cass replied in a small voice. Awesome. Add low blood sugar to the pile. Anything else you want to apologize for? For forgetting to eat. Son of a bitch. Dean reached into his backpack and unpacked a chocolate bar. Here, he said, putting it to Cass's mouth. The angel took a small nibble at first, then started munching on the chocolate in big, earnest chunks. Dean tucked the blankets around Cass's shoulders, and after a bit of hesitation, he gave in to the instinct to ruffle his wet mop of hair. Thank you, Dean, said Cass, stopping the munching and staring with those big blue eyes right into Dean's soul. Dean wasn't sure if he was being thanked for the chocolate, the blankets, or for that random act of kindness, but he smiled, and the smile that had earned him in return was enough to warm up the cabin and stop the rain. Just another couple of hours, and we'll get back for fuel, and we drive home, Dean said to himself while he snuggled up with Cass under the blanket. It had been 72 hours now. End.